The night was unnaturally still before the sky exploded. A low hum rolled across the plains of Eastern Europe, growing louder until it became a deafening roar. Then came the first flash, a blinding streak of light tearing across the horizon, followed by the thunderous crack of a hypersonic missile hitting its mark. Within seconds, the border region was engulfed in chaos. Flames clawed at the sky as power grids went dark, and the hum of drones filled the air like an endless swarm of mechanical bees. In a radar outpost near Lublin, Polish officers scrambled to restore communications. "We've lost connection to 3 surveillance networks," one shouted, his voice trembling. The screens flickered wildly, showing blurred images of drones slicing through the clouds. Each carried a small red light, a sign of autonomous targeting systems now unleashed without human control. The officers exchanged terrified glances. This wasn't just an air raid. It was a calculated strike meant to paralyze, to blind, to overwhelm. Far underground, in a NATO command bunker, the atmosphere was suffocating. Dozens of analysts worked frantically, typing codes and issuing alerts as the situation escalated. Colonel Michael Harper leaned over a table crowded with maps and live feeds. Every few seconds, another red dot appeared, another impact zone. "This is no localized conflict," he said through clenched teeth. "We're witnessing a coordinated multi-theater offensive. Dagger-class hypersonic missiles, confirmed launch trajectories from multiple points." Outside, air defense sirens screamed across the countryside. Civilians ran for shelter, clutching their children as buildings trembled under distant shock waves. Emergency services were overwhelmed within minutes. Fires spread through industrial zones, lighting up the dark sky in shades of orange and crimson. It looked almost unreal, a painting of destruction so vivid it defied comprehension. By midnight, the scope of the attack became clear. At least 6 nations reported strikes. Drones were targeting fuel depots, radar arrays, and supply routes. The drones moved with eerie precision, communicating in encrypted swarms that adapted faster than human. Operators could respond. As dawn approached, a haunting silence settled over the battle-scarred land. The air reeked of smoke and scorched metal. Colonel Harper stared at the screens, knowing this was only the beginning. "The world just changed tonight," he whispered, "and there's no turning back." The heavy rain drummed against the glass dome of the Bundestag as dawn broke over Berlin. The city was wrapped in a grey mist, its usual rhythm slowed by unease. Every screen, every radio frequency, every newsfeed carried the same urgent message. The strikes in the east had not stopped. Europe was trembling, and Germany stood at a crossroads. Inside the parliamentary chamber, the air was electric with tension. Politicians murmured in low voices, their words drowned by the echoing footsteps of security guards and the rhythmic tapping of journalists' keyboards. Chancellor Erich Reinhardt stood at the podium, his usually calm face hardened by sleepless nights. The cameras focused on him as the world waited for Germany's response. He cleared his throat, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are witnessing a new era of warfare, one that knows no borders, no limits. Germany cannot stand idle while our allies burn." His tone sharpened. "As of this hour, we are authorizing full-scale mobilization. 800,000 troops will be placed on standby. Our industries will shift to defense production. Our skies will not remain undefended." A murmur spread through the assembly. Some members rose to their feet, applauding in grim solidarity. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The word mobilization echoed like a gunshot. Outside, the news hit the streets instantly. Protesters gathered near the Brandenburg Gate within minutes, waving flags, shouting slogans, clashing over what the Chancellor's words meant for their future.
"No more war!"
shouted one side. "Defend our nation," answered the other. Meanwhile, in military bases scattered across Bavaria and Saxony, the order was already in motion. Convoys of armored vehicles rolled through the fog. Troops, young and old, loaded gear into transports, their breath visible in the cold morning air. Commanders barked orders as lights flickered in control rooms. The low rumble of engines filled the valleys like distant thunder. Across the Atlantic, Washington and London reacted with cautious approval, but Moscow's response was icy and sharp. A statement was released within hours. Any German military escalation will be treated as an act of hostility. Back in Berlin, Chancellor Reinhardt stood by his office window, watching the rain blur the city lights. He whispered to his aide, "History doesn't repeat itself. It evolves, but it always demands a price." The rain outside fell harder, like tears from the sky.
The first light of dawn revealed a world unrecognizable. The Polish-Ukrainian border, once dotted with sleepy villages and quiet fields, had transformed into a vast military fortress. Rows of tanks lined the roads like metallic beasts, their barrels pointed eastward. The smell of fuel, smoke, and cold earth hung thick in the air. The ground vibrated with the constant rumble of engines as supply convoys snaked toward the front. In a temporary command post set up inside an abandoned farmhouse, Captain Lena Voss stood over a digital map glowing faintly in the dark. Her uniform was stained with mud, her expression carved from exhaustion. She had fought in cyber defense before, but this was something else entirely. "We're fighting ghosts," she muttered. "They strike before we even see them." Her radio crackled. Drones detected. Grid coordinates Delta 7. Outside soldiers sprinted into position, raising anti-air launchers as the faint buzzing grew louder. A formation of 20 enemy drones appeared, cutting through the mist like predators. "Engage!" shouted Lena. Streaks of tracer fire illuminated the gray sky, followed by the crackle of explosions. Some drones fell burning to the ground, but others broke formation, diving low with uncanny precision. One slammed into a fuel truck, sending a fireball into the air that shook the ground beneath their feet. "Get those men back! Seal off the perimeter!" Lena shouted, coughing through the smoke. The air was thick with chaos and shouting, the whine of engines, the distant boom of artillery. And then, through the static of her headset, came a voice from command. "Hypersonic missiles inbound. Estimated impact, 2 minutes." Everyone froze for a heartbeat. Lena's heart hammered in her chest. "All units take cover, move!" The soldiers dove into trenches and behind armored vehicles. A blinding flash tore through the horizon, followed by a wave of heat that flattened everything in its path. The shockwave hit seconds later, hurling dust and debris through the air. When the roar faded, the world was silent again, eerily, painfully silent. Lena rose slowly, her ears ringing. The fields ahead were burning, and the border itself had become a scar of fire and ruin. She stared at the rising smoke and whispered to herself, "This isn't just a front line anymore. It's the edge of the world."
Night had fallen once more, but the world refused to sleep. Across Europe, the glow of burning cities flickered against the low-hanging clouds. Satellites captured endless streams of data, missile trajectories, drone swarms, troop movements, all feeding into the war rooms of the world. Inside NATO headquarters in Brussels, every screen was alive with tension, each one counting down to something no one wanted to name. Colonel Michael Harper stood motionless before a digital map pulsing in shades of red and amber. His eyes were hollow from sleepless nights, his voice rough when he finally spoke. "We're standing on the edge," he said quietly to his deputy. "Every country is armed, every system is primed, and one wrong signal will light the fuse." Around him, analysts whispered, typing furiously, trying to intercept the next wave of encrypted transmissions. AI algorithms tracked potential strike zones, 20 of them, spreading westward like a slow, inevitable tide. A loud alarm pierced the air. "Incoming hypersonic launch, unknown origin," shouted a technician. The room erupted into chaos. Data streamed in from satellites. Velocity, coordinates, potential impact sites, all uncertain. Harper slammed his fist on the console. "Identify it. Is it ours or theirs?" But no one could answer. The systems were jammed. The line between defense and offense had blurred beyond recognition. Far above the Earth, military satellites maneuvered in silence, their orbits shifting in preparation for war. In the Pacific, carrier fleets altered course. In the Arctic, submarines surfaced from beneath the ice, awaiting orders. Every continent seemed to hold its breath, as though the planet itself knew it was seconds from collapse. In Berlin, Chancellor Reinhardt watched the same countdown ticking across his secure screen. Daggers 0912. He reached for the Phoned to authorize defensive. Countermeasures, then hesitated. One word from him could trigger retaliation from 3 superpowers. If we fire now, he said to his aide, the world ends before sunrise. Back in Brussels, the countdown reached its final minute. The hum of machines filled the silence. Harper exhaled slowly, his hand trembling over the console. Maybe this is how it happens, he whispered. Then just before 0, all screens froze. The countdown stopped. No one moved. The silence was deafening, the kind of silence that only comes before either peace or annihilation.